Well, the deadline for filing your tax returns for most of us, of course, is April 30th. And here to tell us what's new when it comes to your 2021 tax return, among other things, I'm joined by Kody Wilson. He is a partner over there at GGFL, my old stomping grounds and my dad's old stomping grounds. Kody, well, welcome to the show. Great to have you here. And yeah, there has been some changes. Walk us through some of the major changes for our 2021 taxes.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I always break this up to say what's new this year and what's kind of new.
Okay.
Because things change so rapidly in the tax world, and I find people aren't always aware of what's gone on in recent years. So here's what's really new. Working from home. Everybody's doing this now, right? Because we're stuck at home the last couple of years. The government said, you know what, you're working from home, you're spending more on utilities and everything else by being there. You may have to buy a computer or something else. We're going to give you the option of doing a standard deduction or a simplified deduction. The simplified says you get $500. Easy, simple deduction. Everybody can get as long as you work from home for the entire year, essentially. The other option is to say there's a detailed method. And they say, okay, you can go through and say, what were all the actual costs you incurred in the year? The problem is you're relatively limited in doing that. So it really only makes sense if you're a renter, because the entire amount of rent you pay goes in that calculation. But as a homeowner, we get kicked out for mortgage interest and property taxes, so kind of the more expensive stuff. So that should be on everybody's radar, because a lot of people are going to benefit from that. The other thing I tell people about is the climate action incentive. So a couple of years ago, the government said, we're going to put this new carbon tax out there. We're going to tax everybody a bit more at the pump when you fill up. So to compensate for that, we're now going to give you a bit more back as a bit of a credit on your tax return. Okay. Everybody basically gets this in Canada. And what they've done this year is they said, instead of giving you the money when you file your taxes, we're going to give it to you in 4 quarterly installments throughout the year. So people may see a bit less of a refund this year than they were expecting because of that. It wasn't widely announced either. So we always tell our client just to warn them, you're still getting it. It's just going to take some time to get it. And I think it's even more important now than ever, given what's going on at the pump, as I'm sure all your viewers can attest to, with gas prices sky high right now. The other one that's a little specific, but I still like to talk about it too, is the eligible educator supply tax credit.
Okay.
So if you're a teacher or you work in the school system in some capacity, up to $1,000 of expenses you incur works toward a tax credit. So you're chipping in for something with part of the board or part of the markers and pens and everything else you're kind of bringing in. All that stuff would qualify. And then the last one too, which can impact 2 different groups, is there's a credit for seniors that sort of update their homes. So if they're doing something along the
Oh, I just lost Kody there for a sec. we were talking, by the way, tax return. Oh, there you go. Kody, you're back. Go ahead.
I froze. Okay. I'm just talking about this new tax credit for seniors, basically. So if you make any kind of updates to your house to make a ramp so it's more accessible, or anything that helps, putting in a more user-friendly shower so there's grips or something like that, there's also a credit where up to $10,000 of expenses qualify for a bit of a rebate. Or if you're the adult children and you've got the parent living with you and they're over 65, the kids can qualify for the credit for expenses they've incurred to make the house a little more livable. So that's what's new. Okay. And then what's kind of new is last couple of years is a couple things here. So cryptocurrency, I'm sure you've heard all about that, and people, it's the hottest thing everyone's talking about. All the cryptocurrency transactions are taxable, which I don't think people fully appreciate yet. And the big challenge with that is, how do you get the reasonable records to support all of that, to pull it together? Because a lot of the outfits you buy it through, they're all these online apps you see. It's very tough to get information from them. So the onus is on the taxpayer to gather all that information and make sure they've got a reasonable record and support for the transactions in the year, and make sure they're reporting it on their tax returns. And similarly for, I was just going to say, investment income.
Right.
Same
Kody,
kind of thing. Everyone's got the apps on the phone.
Just under 60 seconds left. Just quickly, I mentioned that April 30th deadline, but there are a couple of different deadlines. Talk about those, and then if you do owe, when do you have to pay by?
That's exactly right. So there's actually a little bit of extension this year until May 2nd. So people have a little more flexibility with the deadline. Now, if you're self-employed, we get a bit of an extension until June 15th. The problem is, even though the return's extended, the amount is still due on May 2nd. So make sure that gets paid. And in terms of payment, we've got a few options. You can go into the bank and pay. You can pay online, which is probably the easiest recommended option, or you can mail a check into CRA.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Kody. Really appreciate it. That's Kody Wilson from GGFL, right here in Westboro, as a matter of fact, just down the street. And just a reminder, get organized. Start organizing everything right now, because you don't want to be last minute going through everything. Make sure you get that paperwork organized. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and we'll see you on the next edition of Daytime Ottawa right here on Rogers TV.